Sally. Nice to meet you.
This is my husband, Steve.
Steve, I'm Sterling.
We're not relatives.
Close enough. Very close. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
And Kat, and behind you is Butch.
I'm Butch.
Hi.
How you doing?
Butch. Mr. Keelboat.
And I want to thank you for all the food. It's wonderful.
It is great.
It's wonderful.
I brought more.
Oh my goodness. My goodness, I can't believe that. So Sterling is one of our right-hand men. I'm going to let him run the tour.
Oh.
I'm a
I don't know
videographer.
what I'm say, but
And I'm going to make you all famous, but it's okay.
Oh.
We both have YouTube channels, and we love visitors to the site.
Shirley has one too?
yep. Me and my brother Isaac, we run Iowa Farm Bros.
Iowa Farm Bros.
Yep. So we
Look that up.
talk about farming stuff most of the time, but lately I've been posting videos daily about, you know, what we're doing here. So
Good, good. What do you do for a full-time job, or are you a farmer?
I just quit my carpentry job
Okay.
a couple months ago,
Okay.
working for a company over by Clarinda. So
But your main thing is farming, isn't it?
my main thing is
Oh,
farming.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the farming's not a job, it's a
I've
lifestyle.
always tried to make the farming pay for the farming, so you know I
good.
can do other things.
That's
but now I'm
great.
going to try to bridge both of those
That's
things.
awesome.
So
What did you say the other day about in your blood?
I have dirt in my blood.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Butch has sawdust. In
I have
his.
sawdust in mine, there you go.
Yep, yep.
I am amazed at the progress. I was not expecting.
So do we have a representation of what everything's going to look like?
I think so. I'll grab it. I know where it's at. Here you go, Sterling.
So,
Here you go, buddy. You pass that around and explain it to him.
so Lewis and
I'm going to
Clark-
get up here where I can get a better view if you don't mind.
I've heard it before, but I'd like to hear your version.
What was that? It would have been December of 1803. Lewis and Clark showed up to the mouth of the Missouri, which is across the river from St. Louis, and they built Wood River or Dubois. So we're copying, we're replicating that here.
It's a colored picture underneath there, Sterling.
Yep, so we are building the 16 by 25 foot cabin. We will be building 4 more cabins and then doing the stockade around it. So this is step 1 of theoretically 5 or 6 steps. Is that a good way to put it?
Yep.
So here, the replica here,
The model,
we
yeah.
have
We have a model
in
inside.
the
Yeah.
museum, which Butch made. It's about that big. And then here's a picture of the replica that they built somewhere in Illinois. Wood River, Illinois.
Wood River, right
Illinois.
on this original site, yeah.
So yeah, but that's what we're doing. We're just working on step 1 of.
So these were each a living space?
They
Yes.
called them huts. They were for the men.
They were for the men.
Show them where they would point they would guard the edges from
Yeah, the windows,
So, right,
the way they
if
stick
you-
out 2
if
foot.
You notice how each one sticks out a little bit. They could see down the line, you know, what's going
That
on.
was their outdoor video cameras.
Yes.
What
basically.
was the danger?
Theft.
Theft.
In the
From-
St. Louis area, it would be theft. In the other 2 forts they built, Mandan and Clatsop. Mandan in the winter of 1804,
4
yeah.
and 5.
4
yeah,
and
that's
5,
in North
and
Dakota.
then Mandan 5 and 6, right?
And then Clatsop's on.
That's right,
mouth of
Clatsop.
Columbia.
But
Yeah.
that was unsure about the Native Americans and what they might do, and not as trustworthy. The Native Americans around that St. Louis area were fairly well, settled in and happy with the white man and getting along.
They're used to it.
But there was a lot of important material being gathered for this trip, and everybody and all the thieves in St. Louis knew about it.
Right.
So it was a theft situation.
And
Security.
Lewis is into town occasionally to get more supplies as they realize the thing is
Full of.
growing,
Yeah, so.
How long did it take them to build?
Oh, that's a good one. Doug? Front and center.
A record
17 days.
17 days.
Real, that whole thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And then how long did they stay there?
4 months, was
About
it?
4.5.
4 and a half months.
How many men were working on it?
Well, they're at that point about
30,
20.
20 to 30.
Yeah.
20 to 30. They were kept.
Well, yeah, it
recruiting.
would have been 20 something
They
because
kept recruiting all winter.
Right.
Yep.
So this is
But bear in mind, bear in mind, it was a temporary building, temporary shelter.
Right.
So none of the normal rules applying to a log cabin would even apply. I mean, they daubing. This is chinking. The little pieces of wood are chinking,
In between
and then when you
logs,
put the concrete in, that's daubing.
which,
And they would daub with mud, which was fine for the winter months,
yeah,
but wasn't going to hold up during the summer. They didn't care. They weren't going to be there.
constant
So we have got a temporary shelter to build a permanent model of a temporary building.
So the challenge
That's a tongue
is,
twister
the
for you.
challenge is making this look like it, like what it would have been with them,
So
yet
we have-
making it last at least 20 to.
So what are
you
you
can-
going to chink with?
Well, right
Or
here,
daub with?
we're using standard concrete
Ah, I got
material,
that screwed
but
to the
we're
wall.
yeah, it is screwed to the wall. But can you unscrew it?
I'm looking for my drill.
But
Well,
we're
actually, we can go around and we'll show
Yeah, you
you
can see it on
with
the
the
other
logs.
Oh,
yeah, you can
okay.
actually see it in action.
Oh.
So,
But we're dyeing the concrete to make it look like we're using the center one, and we're
Okay.
dyeing it to make it look like mud. But we're still going to use the concrete for the
Concrete.
longevity, you know. So yeah, so that's. But then, and it's interesting because then the roof, they most probably used oilcloth, which was basically a heavy sailcloth impregnated with linseed oil,
Yep.
as an initial cover for the roof, and then they put tree limbs and stuff on it, which was fine during the winter when everything was frozen. Wouldn't last too long in the summer. What do? We're going to, rather than oilcloth, we're going to use a rubber membrane, and then we're going to cover it so you can't see it, so we're watertight year-round. So you have to make these changes. Another interesting, I'm sorry, am I taking it away from you?
well, I was going to comment that the rubber membrane we'll use is the same thing as what would be on the top of every,
Right.
brick and mortar
Yeah.
building downtown Nebraska City.
No.
Rubber membrane on the roof.
They had two chimneys. They had two fireplaces in this building, and each one of them had a fireplace, and they had chimneys. But the chimneys were called wattle and daub. And basically, they were nothing but wooden sticks, stacked Lincoln log style, leaving a cavity in between, and then they were coated
See
with
the
mud.
size of it. It's just a little log cabin, Lincoln log looking
Yeah,
chimney.
and they were
really.
coated with mud. Well, a wattle and daub chimney was designed to burn a building down. because 9 times out of 10, if you had much more than a little cooking fire, you'd smoke the building because it just doesn't hold up.
Right.
But we're doing wattle and daub too. But we're building a steel liner for the two fire pots, and then we're going to go up the center with steel pipe, and everything's going to be encased in concrete. And outside of that is going to be wattle and daub, and you'll not know that it's not wattle and daub. So when you're trying to do a long-term permanent structure that was not long-term or permanent,
Right.
you have to make compromises. Another compromise we made is windows. I doubt they bothered. I mean, it would have let cold air in.
Right.
I think they just put up with having to deal with a candle, but we just can't do that. So we added 4 windows. So this is not meant to be a historical replica. It's meant to be a tool to educate, and we're trying to hit a happy medium.
Right.
I'm going to shut up now.
No,
What are you
you're gonna do good.
charging to rent a hut for the night?
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
yeah. Well,
That's a good idea. The museum could look into
we
it.
want to do living history. You know what first person? You know what a first person encounter is? I'll give you an example of it. Say you guys came in here during a first person encounter, and you would be met by usually a young lady, and she would say, "Come with me. We're going to step into 1804, and you're going to be able to see what's going on." And she would bring you to the door and knock, and she would step in the door, and then she would usher you in and stand you there. And then you would get to see the guys doing their thing. And usually they would be discussing a theme, whatever that theme might be, whether it be, did you see how Sergeant so-and-so screwed up today or whatever. And it was just a
Hunting
theme from that
For
era.
the day. Yeah.
Now, if anybody in the group has a question, this young lady, my back's out, this young lady will say, well, let me find out. She'll bow her head, she'll step over here into 1804. and she will ask the question, and then she'll step back in 2024 and answer your question. And it's called a first-person encounter, and people here do not react to you being there at all. Coolest thing in the world, guys. Coolest thing in the world. And we want to do that. We want to do that as part of our educational stuff. And then regular educational programs in here, bring the kids in, because they're the future of our country. So we want to show them where we came from and what it's all about. And we're all about education. That's all what it boils down to. And we're all passionate about it. So.
How did you get into the Lewis and Clark? Are you related? Are you friends?
I had
church with his grandson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were going to do a trip.
I was going to do
down the
one of
river.
my downriver trips, doing educational programming on a boat, on an
by
18th
Yankee.
century boat. Because that's what I do. I don't expect you to buy the book, but there's a book in here you should flip through. It's called Brown Water. It'll tell you about what I do on the river, what I did on. I'm 77. I don't know how many more years I got to do this, okay? But I went to my grandson and I said, Jordan, I'm getting too old to push boats off of sandbars, and we're going to be doing this trip this summer as soon as this boat's done. Could you help me? Oh, Grandpa, that's not my thing. And he says, but I go to church with this guy, and when he hunts, he dresses up like a mountain man. And I said, I need to meet this kid. Boom, like a second son to me, okay? Well, that's how we met.
Yeah.
It's all about paths crossing. People that you know and other people that you know, and you cross a path with them, and you bring them into the fold, and camaraderie and friendship is what keeps something like this alive. It keeps it going, you know. And working with, I hate to say it, a guy like this makes it really easy. Really easy.
And they did decorate for the seasons?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was one of our helpers that
That's
came
another
in.
path crossed.
Yes, another path that was crossed. Tell about that path. You know that story.
So we had these logs, these trees standing over on the other side of the river, pretty close to where Sterling lives.
On the Iowa side.
On the Iowa side
Yeah.
of the river, in a wildlife management area. A fire had come in last spring and come through, they killed them, and they had been there in the flood, and they died during the flood, a lot of them too. So I went and talked, we found a free source of logs, and then we got them cut down by a bunch of volunteers for free. Now the task is, how are we going to load them on a truck that Butch's friend owns and get them over here? Well, we'll use a telehandler. Isaac and Sterling, they know how to use telehandlers. Perfect. But they're farming because it hasn't frozen yet.
Oh, man.
And we didn't know till a couple days ahead, but
Right.
Isaac and Sterling not available.
You called our brother John.
And I called John. He said, I'd love to, but I'm getting a colonoscopy tomorrow. And the next day I go see my tax accountant. So Butch says, no problem, I'll go on YouTube and learn how to run a telehandler.
Yeah, I looked and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody.
So then another path crossed.
My ex-son-in-law, who was a dear, dear friend, a wonderful guy, he stepped into the picture. Go ahead.
And he says, I think I know a guy that he's pretty handy. You want to call him? So Butch calls him, says, here's the deal. We just need manpower to get these logs that don't know how we're going to do it. Well, what you going to use?
Yeah, that's
He
key.
says. And Butch said, we've already rented a telehandler. Well, hell, I ran one of those for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Now,
So-
I asked my son-in-law about this guy. I said, what do you know about him? Oh, he's cool. I meet him at the bars. Because my son-in-law services these game machines at bars. So he met him at a bar. And he says, he's really neat. He has a pet goat that he brings to the bar. And I'm going, oh my God. Oh my God.
Fit right in.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
So, does he fit right
He
in?
fits right in. In fact, he was here earlier today. Yesterday he brought his wife up. I think we've got him hooked.
Yeah, I think we got him. Yeah.
And
He's going to be a regular.
today he brought their cedar logs laying out here because we need logs to go across for the roof. He found a source of logs.
Yeah.
So he's out, I think this afternoon, cutting more cedar down.
He's quite a guy. He's something else. But we have a newsletter. If any of you would like to see the first one and be
we've
privy.
We've got them. I love them.
Okay. All right.
We
So.
sent him.
All
Are
right.
you the author?
Yes, ma'am. Well, Doug, no, wait a minute. Let me explain this. My idea, a lot of my ideas, but it's like my book, okay? I'm the author of the book, but without an editor, oh, you wouldn't even use it for toilet paper. This man, he and I together do the newsletter. Okay, he and I together do it.
So what are you doing over there, Doug? With
I'm
that
taking-
big
I'm taking bark.
machete?
There's some of these that still have bark on them.
Oh.
Not too many, but a few. So I'm peeling bark off.
So when he shows up in the morning, he has a knife, and this guy's got a gun. So I'm thinking, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble. What am I going to do? Okay?
What's the gun?
It's a black powder pistol.
Yeah, I was gonna work on it when I was eating lunch.
Yeah,
and
I
that
think it
never
was.
happened,
I think it was
so.
intimidation myself. I don't know.
Intimidation.
Where did you get that gun?
Was that a kit that you put together?
It was a kit that I
Yeah,
put together.
yeah. But we, and he's a member of the AMM, which is a very, very prestigious mountain man association.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty much an elite group.
So
Yeah.
600 to 700.
Nationwide.
Yeah, nationwide.
That's a pretty small bunch, you know.
So it amounts to several in each state or whatever, and it's like grown men or Boy Scout for grown men,
Yeah.
circa 1800,
Right,
1750 to 1840.
Yeah.
So I camp. You know, I'm going to be going to a camp on Friday in eastern Iowa where we'll hunt deer, but all with flintlocks and wool and buckskins, and try to stay warm.
Yeah.
I do it. While
I did
I'm
it for
young.
40 years in the Boy Scouts, but I'm so old and crippled up now I can hardly walk, so them days are over. But good for the new bunch, man. Let them try
Too
it.
bad you're so old, you're crippled, but all you can do is build long forts.
Well, listen.
Mankind got to, this era by all the old ways, and so part of it's
Exactly.
rediscovering, how did we stay warm back then? What did you
Right.
do? And yeah.
But the camaraderie of the group is the key element here that I keep going back to,
Yeah.
because we just all love one another. We really do. We just think the world of one another, and as a result of that, it's so easy to just have fun and work and push and share blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes some tears. You
Make
know?
fun of each other.
Yeah, make fun of each other. Yeah. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But we always appreciate the cook, the chief cook.
Yep.
Because the
Keep
chief cook,
going.
you're doing good. You're doing good.
Yeah, we bought some soups, canned soups. Pat saw that, and when she saw the Diddy Moore soup, no, too much
Have
soda.
pity on us.
So Pat went to work and made soups.
So 2 years ago, this same group built that keelboat out front, okay? And I was kind of honcho on that project. And my oldest daughter is 53. And when she was 8, I bought our first microwave. And it's sitting there on the end of that table.
Little turn.
And it's an old dial type,
Yep.
So jokingly, I've told the guys, I said, if you're still in childbearing era, y'all wouldn't stand too close to it while it's running, okay? So there was a lady friend of ours that she's part of she hangs out with us, and she about our age, and she come over, and I told her that, and she said, well, does it still work? And I said, yeah. Well, could you make me a cup of coffee? I said, absolutely. So I turned it on, and I dialed, tick, 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 because you take this thing and put it, go, tick, 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 tick. So I put it to 3, and I was sat down, and she said, Butch, I don't think it's running. And I went over and I listened to it. I don't think it is. I slapped it on the side and started running, and she moved her chair over here. We do have a good time.
Tell us about the exoskeleton.
Go ahead,
Is that what
Doug.
you call it? Is that
Yeah,
what
that's what I named it, but it's
I
a
call it
building.
the greenhouse.
It's oh God, the solar heat's amazing.
And you feel drips coming down every once in a while.
It's
Yeah,
Now
it's
Now
a.
you can pick it up and move it over and start.
Well,
a
actually, what we're
greenhouse.
going to do is we're going to take the end out of it and slide it that way, and start those 2 buildings come spring.
Right.
But yeah, it's we were concerned we could only go down 2 foot here because of the geothermal pipes for the center, so we couldn't really anchor it like we wanted to. So we've got these huge piles of logs out there that were salvaged off another old building over the hill here, and then we anchored them together and tied it down with them. Everything we
Steel
could,
cables.
because this is a big sail up here on this hill, and I just didn't want to see it down there on the road. But it's been working just fine. Been doing great.
You spent most of October building it.
Yeah.
Well, I went most of October, but you were Yeah.
So Butch, his pickup is right out here. And when we were building this, he backed his pickup in here, and that was our scaffolding. So Mr. Bovere climbs up there with his cane, ties a piece of plywood to the top, and then puts plywood on top of the cab, and then puts a step stool up there and screws it on and climbs up there to get the top of this.
I think that made the newsletter.
It did make the newsletter.
I remember that picture.
Yeah.
Well, I'm crippled up, but I can get around if I try hard.
And we struggled and struggled. One day, Isaac and Sterling came over, and in 3 hours they had all the plastic on.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys are like squirrels.
They just were like monkeys
Yeah.
up there.
Works together. We learn the knowledge, and Butch shows us how to do stuff, and then we bounce ideas off of
right,
each other.
right. And that's another thing too. We share ideas, share thoughts, and everybody contributes to the ultimate project. It's kind of my responsibility to make sure we don't get too far off track, but always open to, well, we're going to pull it all together and make this a real gangbuster event for the
So
20th.
you've got Mountain Men, you've got Lewis and Clark,
Mountain Men of the Fur
Civil
Trade.
War,
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
Blacksmith.
Got probably
Fort
one of the
Atkinson.
finest blacksmiths in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dean Slater. And then another funny story, Shirley Enos, who is part of our total group here. And Shirley and I did this boat trip together. And I was visiting with her one day.
2018.
Yeah, I was
2018.
visiting with her one day, and she said, well, she says, you know, she says, they had a laundress. I said, a laundress? Yeah. So I went back and I read the journals for this period of time, and sure enough, they had hired a woman, and they did refer to her as a laundress to do their clothing. And they put her up a little hut and everything. So I says, well, but we don't know anything about her. And Shirley says, oh, no, she was Swedish. Well, how do you know? Well, she says, her name was Mallory Bath, and she was Swedish. And I said, so do you want to play the laundress? Yeah. So people are just coming out of the woodwork to be part of it, you know.
Shirley belonged to a group that met every Wednesday and talked to Lewis and Clark. Did book reviews and read parts of the journals. And
They would go through the journals
every week.
every week.
Yeah, once a
Like
week.
Day by day.
Mouth of the Platte
Yep.
chapter.
What is the opening there?
For the fireplaces.
Yep,
For the
those are-
steel fireplaces that his brother is currently welding together for us. Yeah.
Yep.
Which are be made to look like they're not steel, but they are.
Yep.
Be covered in wood.
Yeah, well, not really. We can't
Covered in wood on the outside.
We're
like-
gonna, yeah, on the outside. On the inside, we're trying to figure out how to hide the fact that they're metal. I don't know if we can or not. But we want to use them as a source of heat, because these candlelight tours, these first-person encounters, normally done in cold weather. And I don't want a bunch of electric heaters in here, you know.
Right.
So, and there's
Well,
another
neither do
place
we.
called Fort Atkinson up in
Fort Calhoun.
Fort Calhoun, and they've been doing this for years and years and years. Let me tell you a funny story. Well, this is an interesting story. They've been doing it for years and years and years. And Atkinson was a fort for 4 years, from 1827 to 30.
1820. 1821 or 22
Is that what it was?
to
Anyhow,
1827.
but these guys up
6
there,
years.
they walk the walk and talk the talk. And so, and there's be 40 of them that get together, and they got all these rooms, and they give these candlelight tours. They charge $35 a head. They have like 200 people a year that want to do it. But when they're done with the candlelight tour, it's late on a Saturday. So they always stay there overnight. And then Sunday, they go home. And 99% of the time, when they're doing this, it's snowing. For some reason, it'll snow in Fort Calhoun on the night they do this. So Dean Slater, the blacksmith. Now, you got to remember this, too. The blacksmithing shop's at the very end of the fort. Why? Because there's fire in it. So they put it at the very end. So beyond the fort, there's nothing. But the guys, the blacksmithing shop also has a brick floor, regular
Cobblestone, yeah.
cobblestone floor. So it gets warm. So guess where the guys throw their bedrolls down to sleep Saturday night? In the blacksmithing shop. So everybody's settled in. They got back in their civilian clothes and stuff, and they're settled in. And Dean's down there, and somebody still in costume, hadn't changed out to civilian clothes yet, opened the door, walked the length of the shop on the cobblestone, clog, 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 opened the back door, and closed it behind him. Dean says, oh, he's probably going out to relieve himself. Wait about 10, 15 minutes and nothing happened. He says, what the hell did that guy go? So he got up and he got his flashlight, and he opened up the door and looked, and then footsteps went out about 20 feet, then they just stopped. And he tells this story around a campfire, and it'll put the hair up on your arms. He swears it's true, doesn't he?
I've heard him tell
He
it.
swears it true. Who knows? But this is, huh?
What's the footprint on the hut?
It's right here, right here. There's two different sizes.
Go ahead, Sterling.
Well, 10 by 20 be out there.
What we're going to do,
18 by
Sterling, we're
14.
going to do the two 10 by 20s there and the two smaller ones here. But that's the two different sizes. Yeah.
Pretty small. So this will actually be captain's quarters. We're going to be doing a wall across here, door here to support this beam, which didn't end up being very straight, but that's why we decided to put it here. And then, so this will be captain's quarters back here, and then storeroom or common area for meetings amongst the non-commissioned officers and stuff like that.
So you can see where we're all so tied up in this thing. We've got a lot of plans for it.
Yeah.
Thank you for the tour.
Hey, you're more than welcome. I'm sure glad you're getting the newsletter.
Yes.
There'll
Take
probably
them around
be a
again
link
and
to
show
this
them
video in
the,
the next one, okay?
The dobbing.
I think I better turn it off before it gets too big to download. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Alrighty.